now
Yes.
is tuning into Sactown Sports on a Sunday, 10 a.m., and listening to the sweet, lovely tones of Greg Papa as we debut being the home of the San Francisco 49ers this Sunday. Joining us right now, the voice of the Niners, as he will each and every Friday, the one, the only, Greg Papa. Good morning, sir.
And the first game, Dave, is against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the six-time Super Bowl champions, the first team to get to 4, and then added, 5 and 6 with Cowher and Tomlin and Big Ben, and the 49ers, the first team to get to 5, and stuck on 5 for a while, and the return of Nick Bosa.
Yes.
So you hear a lot of, here comes Bosa.
Well, on that note, Greg, you're closer to all this than Dave and I are, certainly, but everybody didn't seem to be too worried about him, and then it seemed like there got to be a little bit point of panic on Bosa. Where were you on all this? When did you think this was ultimately going to happen?
Yeah, it dragged on about a week longer than I thought. I was looking at, Labor Day weekend, some point, get him in, because you got to go through the physical and reacclimate his body and get the language done in the contract, which is still, they just signed him this morning. They sent a release out at 8:02 this morning, 30 minutes ago, that they signed him. He was not signed yesterday. So when he was at the facility, he was working with the performance staff on the side, just reacclimating his body to, having a helmet on and shoulder pads and football pants over those huge quadzillas he's got, and then the cleats. And that's a little bit of a process. So, but he's ready to roll. He's in amazing shape, obviously. As I said, that guy works harder 45 minutes to get ready for practice than guys doing games. But it's not quite football shape, so how much can he play? We'll see. Will he be in 1st and 10 in the base defense against the vaunted Steeler running game? Or will he just come in a sub package? I would think both. I think he'll go mix him in and maybe rotate him out a little bit earlier, but he's ready. I would have liked to have seen him in Labor Day and then on the Wednesday practice. So he didn't practice yesterday, really. He just got reacclimated. And Wednesday's the big install day. So today, he'll go through a full practice and then the walk through tomorrow. But hell, he's not Nick. He's Nick Bosa. He just never gets too far out of shape. So as I'm telling people, he got here in a nick of time.
Kyle, the whole thing of him being prepped by the PR guy walking in, basically going to the gallows, if you will, the whole turnaround, the jolt of energy through the building. It looks like Bosa's in shape. Greg, I think, and we said this yesterday, he got off that plane and the Niners filmed a little I'm back thing with him. Niners PR obviously has a tough job, but I thought they dropped the ball. What a great opportunity for somebody to dress him in like a fat guy outfit and just have him roll in and just be like, got a little bit of work to do, but we'll get it done before Sunday. Just let that fly for a day. That's a great troll bit right there.
You would have gone Mike Myers and Austin Powers.
Yes. But they get in my belly. Exactly. It's a happy group. And in your opinion, is this something that they need Nick Bosa, but did they need Nick Bosa to have a real chance at going in and beating Pittsburgh?
Well, it certainly helps. Pittsburgh's good. And everybody's crowning them the preseason Super Bowl winners, and they look great. Their offense was on the field for 5 series, Dave, and they were 5 for 5. They scored a touchdown on every one with Pickett in there, and their first-team offense. They had a perfect quarterback rating. But the 49ers played their guys. Purdy played 3 series, and they were all drives. One for a field goal, one J.P. Mason fumbled on the goal line, going in literally, and the next one Brock scored himself. So they moved the ball pretty well. You didn't play Bosa, you didn't play Trent Williams. Hargrave played a little bit. But I'm here to tell you, Wednesday, when Kyle came into the auditorium to meet the media, and it was scheduled for 12:40, and we literally get the alert sitting there in the chair waiting, at about 12:40 that Bosa signed. And Kyle came in skipping. He was, he's got to go deal with Tim Kawakami and Eric Branch. And skip it into that. That's going to the gallows, as you said. But he was just happy. There's been a lot of tension around this team in August. There's been a high level of expectation the last 2 years, I would say. 19 kind of crept up on everybody when Bosa arrived. All of a sudden, you're 8-0 and you're going to the Super Bowl. And then the next year was the pandemic. So that was just weird. Football became secondary, obviously. And then after that, losing the championship game in LA and Philadelphia, there's a high level of expectation. But this year, having McCaffrey here from the start, having Javon Hargrave here, there's just such a level of expectation. But you can't win the Super Bowl in August. You can't. Maybe with a horrific injury, you can lose it in August. But no one's winning the Super Bowl in August. Yeah, that's a process, and it's a week-to-week deal, and it starts Sunday. And then, the Trey Lance drama over the franchise was just heavy. It was heavy. And it was time to move on from Trey. It was time to anoint Brock, and it was time to get Bosa here. So I just sensed a real tension lifted on Wednesday when they signed Bosa. And then an hour later, they took the practice field, and, man, they lit it up. They lit it up. They are so fresh right now. Now, yesterday wasn't, frankly, as good. They had some guys out, and they didn't have as much bounce. But Wednesday, they were flying. McCaffrey is so good. Debo is in the best shape of his life. Brandon Ayuk is just whipping off routes. You can't cover that guy. And then Brock's just getting it out on time and on target. And, the defense is the defense. It's always been there. So Wednesday to me was a significant day where I've watched Pittsburgh in preseason. They look great. But do people forget the 49ers ran off 10 in a row to close last regular season and then 2 more in the playoffs at home? And obviously Philadelphia was loaded and Brock got knocked out and it went sideways. But I'd rather be, where the 49ers ended last year, add Hargrave, come into this year, than be the best team in August.
Voice of the 49ers, Greg Papa, joining us. So, Greg, keeping that in mind, besides injuries, so if they stay healthy, what keeps the Niners from getting to where they want to be? What areas do you think they're concerned with, at least to start the year?
Well, they're not going to stay healthy, Jason. You just don't. I mean, that team I saw Wednesday, that's it. They're never going to be that fresh again. And even yesterday, there were a couple of guys that were out. You're like, whoa, what's going on here? But then when they start hitting each other and be hit on Sunday, it's going to happen. So the depth, I think, across the board is a concern. They're starters and then the sub packages on each side. So it's not 11 on offense, 11 on defense. It's like 15, really. So I'd say their top 30 guys are as good or better, probably better than any team in the NFL. But then where are you from guy 31 to 53 and then your practice squad to take it to 69? They're light. They're not as deep in the offensive line. You lose Mike McGlinchey. So McKivitz, who was a backup, is now a starter at right tackle. He's a good player, but you don't have him to be a backup. And then you don't have Daniel Brunskill, who can play anywhere on the offensive line. He's now in Tennessee. You're just not as deep there. You're not as deep at corner. If you lost, any of these guys, and Demo Lenore is going to have a meaty role. We'll see what they do with Isaiah Oliver, but Ambry Thomas may have to start, and you move Demo inside. You lose Charvarius Ward. All of a sudden, he didn't practice yesterday with a heel. I think he'll be okay, but all of a sudden you're really young. Sam Womack's out there with Demo and Ambry. These are young corners. So there's a lot of areas to me. They're deep in the running back room, but McCaffrey's just different. He's so good. And frankly, I'm shocked how good he is. I knew he was that good at Stanford and to begin his career, but then I thought some of those injuries, those 2 years when he was off the field a lot in Carolina, may have pulled him down. And running backs don't have a long shelf life, but this guy works out like Bosa. He's never out of condition. So they're not as deep in some areas. They're deep at quarterback. You don't want to lose Brock, but Sam is getting the playbook down, and he's got a hose for an arm. So there's just certain areas, Trent Williams, if anything ever happened to him, or Nick, because you lost so many guys on the edge. You lost Domeneu, you lost Jordan Willis. You lost Ebukam. So you lost a lot of guys who are in free agency. So they're going to get hurt. That just happens. You just hope it doesn't pile up in one position where the lack of depth really comes into play.
A chipped ham grilled cheese featuring ham topped with onion tanglers, crispy jalapenos, cheddar cheese, and barbecue sauce on sourdough bread. Available in sections C150, 215, 239, and 305 at Acrisure Stadium. We look forward to your review along with a recap of a win in a week.
Is that a Primanti Brothers sandwich, or what is that?
It sounds like a sandwich that might give you some trouble on the flight back, but it also sounds good.
Well, I'm not having that before the game. That's for sure. Are you guys familiar with Primanti Brothers? That's the famous.
Never been there. 100% familiar with it, though.
I've been there a few times. I've waited in that line. That's probably going to be my Saturday night, late afternoon, early evening. Because it's tough to adjust to the time to go to bed, but you kill one of those.
Yeah.
And they pile the French fries and the coleslaw. They're not a side.
Nah.
They're on top. So it's a messy deal. But after that, if you're like laying awake at night and can't fall asleep, one big Primanti Brothers sandwich. I hope I wake up by kickoff is my only concern.
We look forward to hearing what might be a sleepy-sounding Red Papa on Sunday. He'll be fired up. We'll be ready to go. And good luck this season. Love that we're talking to you each and every week. Thank you so much.
Historic start of this season on Sactown Sports.
Yes.
Maybe it turns out to be big.
Over the night, let me tell you this much. The 49ers have never been heard on Sactown Sports, Greg, and not won the Super Bowl. Never. Not one time. So
For zero.
Exactly. Have a great flight, my friend.
Well, thank you, guys. Take care, Jason.
Thank you.
Take care. That is it. Greg Papa. We'll take a break when we come back. Who's hot? Who's not?